Sarah Martinez clutched her boarding pass tightly as she made her way through the bustling Denver International Airport. The familiar weight of her medical bag hung from her shoulder, a constant reminder of the life she was leaving behind. After 15 years as an emergency room nurse, she had finally decided to take that dream job in Seattle. The move felt both terrifying and liberating. The gate area was crowded with travelers, their conversations creating a low hum that filled the space. Sarah found an empty seat and checked her phone for the third time in 5 minutes. Her flight to Seattle would depart in just 20 minutes. This was it, the moment she had been planning for months. She watched other passengers boarding the plane, each carrying their own stories and destinations. A businessman talked loudly into his phone about quarterly reports. A young mother struggled to manage 2 toddlers while juggling diaper bags and snacks. An elderly couple held hands as they slowly made their way toward the gate, their love evident even after what appeared to be decades together. Sarah's mind wandered to her new job at Seattle General Hospital. The head of emergency medicine had been impressed with her experience and dedication. She had handled everything from car accidents to heart attacks, from broken bones to life-threatening emergencies. Her colleagues often joked that she had nerves of steel, never panicking even in the most chaotic situations. The gate agent's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing that boarding would begin shortly for passengers in first class and those needing special assistance. Sarah belonged to neither category, so she remained seated, using the extra time to mentally prepare for the next chapter of her life. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Maria. "Safe travels, sis. Seattle won't know what hit them. Call me when you land." Sarah smiled and typed back a quick heart emoji. Maria had been her biggest supporter throughout this difficult decision to leave everything familiar behind. The airport around her seemed to pulse with constant motion. Travelers rushed past with rolling suitcases, their footsteps echoing on the polished floors. The smell of coffee from a nearby Starbucks mixed with the generic airport scents of cleaning supplies and recycled air. Sarah had always found airports strangely comforting, places of transition where everyone was either leaving something behind or heading toward something new. She pulled out a small notebook from her purse, a habit she had developed years ago. Writing down her thoughts helped her process big changes. "Day 1 of my new adventure," she wrote. "Scared but excited. Ready for whatever comes next." She paused, pen hovering over the paper, then added, "Trust your instincts. Sarah, they've never led you wrong before." The boarding announcement came sooner than expected. "We would like to begin boarding Flight 447 to Seattle. We'll start with our first-class passengers and anyone needing special assistance." Sarah gathered her belongings and joined the growing line of passengers. Her new life was just a few hours away. As she stood in line, she noticed a man in military fatigues sitting alone near the window. He appeared to be in his early 30s, with short brown hair and the kind of posture that screamed military training. Something about him seemed off, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. He kept shifting in his seat, and she could see beads of sweat on his forehead despite the airport's aggressive air conditioning. Sarah's medical training kicked in automatically. She found herself studying the man more closely, her nursing instincts telling her something wasn't right. His breathing appeared shallow, and his complexion had an unhealthy pallor that she recognized from her years in the emergency room. She had seen that look before, the look of someone fighting pain or illness. The line moved forward slowly as passengers presented their boarding passes and made their way onto the plane. Sarah was now just a few feet from the gate agent when she heard a commotion behind her. She turned to see the military man struggling to stand, his face contorted with obvious distress. "Sir, are you all right?" she heard someone ask, but the man just shook his head, seemingly unable to speak. Sarah watched as he took a few unsteady steps toward the boarding area, clearly determined to make the flight despite whatever was wrong with him. Her heart rate increased as her professional instincts battled with her desire to mind her own business. She was no longer working as a nurse. Technically, she was between jobs, but the Hippocratic Oath didn't have an expiration date. The need to help people in medical distress was ingrained in her very being. The man was getting closer to the boarding line now, each step more labored than the last. Other passengers began to notice his condition, some stepping aside to give him space while others simply stared with curiosity or concern. Sarah found herself holding her breath, watching this stranger's struggle unfold just feet away from where she stood. She was about to step forward and offer assistance when the inevitable happened. The man's legs gave out completely, and he collapsed onto the airport floor with a heavy thud that echoed through the gate area. Passengers gasped and stepped back, creating a circle around the fallen figure. Sarah's medical bag suddenly felt heavier on her shoulder as she realized this moment would define not just her day, but possibly someone else's life. Without hesitation, Sarah dropped her carry-on bag and rushed toward the collapsed man. Her years of emergency room experience took over as she pushed through the crowd of concerned passengers who had gathered around him. "I'm a nurse," she announced firmly, her voice carrying the authority that comes from years of handling medical crises. The man lay unconscious on the cold airport floor, his military uniform now wrinkled and his face alarmingly pale. Sarah immediately knelt beside him and began her assessment. She placed 2 fingers on his neck, checking for a pulse. It was there, but weak and irregular. His breathing was shallow and labored, confirming her suspicions that this was more than just a simple fainting spell. "Someone call 911 immediately," she instructed the gathering crowd without looking up from her patient. A woman nearby pulled out her phone and began dialing. Sarah continued her examination, quickly checking the man's pupils with a small pen light from her medical bag. They were responsive but sluggish, indicating possible shock or internal injury. As she worked, she noticed something that made her heart sink. The man's uniform bore several military patches, including one that identified him as a Navy SEAL. More concerning was the fresh surgical scar she discovered along his abdomen when she carefully lifted his shirt to check for obvious injuries. The scar was recent, probably no more than a few weeks old, and the surrounding skin showed signs of incomplete healing. "What's his name?" Sarah asked the crowd, hoping someone had spoken with him before his collapse. An older gentleman stepped forward, still clutching his own boarding pass. "I heard him talking to someone on the phone earlier," the man said. "I think his name is Jake. Jake something. He mentioned coming back from overseas, said something about trying to get home to his family." Sarah's heart ached as she processed this information. Here was a serviceman who had clearly been through something traumatic, possibly wounded in action, and was now fighting another battle just to get home. She could see evidence of other injuries too. Faded bruises on his arms and what appeared to be healing cuts on his hands. The airport medical team arrived within minutes, their equipment cart rattling across the terminal floor. Sarah quickly briefed them on her findings while maintaining her position beside Jake. Weak pulse, shallow breathing, recent abdominal surgery, possible internal complications. He needs immediate transport to the nearest trauma center. One of the airport medics, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, nodded appreciatively at Sarah's thorough assessment. "Are you medical personnel?" he asked while his partner began setting up monitoring equipment. "Emergency room nurse with 15 years of experience," Sarah replied, never taking her eyes off Jake's face. "I suspect he's been hiding the severity of his condition to make this flight." Military personnel sometimes push through pain that would hospitalize most people. As the medics worked to stabilize Jake for transport, Sarah found herself studying his face more carefully. Even unconscious, there was something about his features that spoke of strength and determination. His hands, she noticed, bore calluses that came from hard work and training. This was someone who had dedicated his life to serving others, and now he needed help himself. The crowd of passengers had grown larger, with many people pulling out phones to record the scene. Sarah felt a surge of protectiveness toward this stranger. "Please give him some privacy," she asked the onlookers. "This man has served our country. The least we can do is respect his dignity during a medical emergency." Several passengers nodded and began encouraging others to step back. A flight attendant from Sarah's Seattle flight appeared beside her. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we need to know if you'll be boarding. We're holding the flight for now, but we can't wait much longer." Sarah looked at the unconscious SEAL, then at the medics preparing to transport him to the hospital. The logical part of her brain reminded her about the new job waiting in Seattle, the apartment she had rented, the life she was supposed to start in just a few hours. But her heart was telling her something entirely different. "He's waking up," one of the medics announced suddenly. Jake's eyelids fluttered and he began to mumble something incomprehensible. Sarah leaned closer to hear him better. "No, can't miss. Have to get home," Jake whispered, his voice barely audible, his eyes open, partially unfocused and confused. "Sarah's birthday. Promised I'd be there." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Here was a man who had been through what appeared to be serious medical trauma, possibly in a war zone, and he was still trying to get home for someone's birthday, someone named Sarah, the same name as her own. It felt like more than just a coincidence. Jake tried to sit up, but the medics gently restrained him. "Sir, you need to lie still. You've collapsed and need medical attention," one of them explained. But Jake kept struggling, his eyes now searching the faces around him with desperate intensity. Where am I?" he asked, his voice growing stronger but still strained. "The plane. I need to catch the plane." Sarah found herself reaching out to touch his shoulder gently. "You're at Denver Airport. You collapsed before boarding. I'm Sarah, I'm a nurse, and you're going to be okay. But you need to let these medics help you." At the mention of her name, Jake's eyes locked onto hers with startling clarity. For a moment, the chaos of the airport seemed to fade away as they looked at each other. There was something in his expression, gratitude mixed with desperation, that touched something deep inside her chest. The medics were ready to transport him now, the gurney positioned beside him. As they prepared to move him, Jake grabbed Sarah's hand with surprising strength. "Please," he whispered. "I can't miss this flight. My daughter. It's her birthday tomorrow. I promised her I'd be home." The words about his daughter's birthday hit Sarah with unexpected force. She looked into Jake's pleading eyes and saw the desperation of a father who had made a promise he was determined to keep. Despite his body failing him, the medics were preparing to wheel him away to the ambulance, but Jake's grip on her hand tightened. "What's your daughter's name?" Sarah asked gently, trying to keep him calm while the medical team worked around them. "Emma," Jake whispered, a small smile crossing his pale face despite his obvious pain. "She's turning 8 tomorrow. I've missed 3 of her birthdays because of deployments. I can't miss another one. I promised her daddy would be home this time." Sarah felt her heart breaking. She could see the anguish in his eyes, the weight of missed moments and broken promises that military families knew too well. The medics were growing impatient, knowing they needed to get Jake to the hospital immediately. But she could tell he wasn't going to cooperate unless someone addressed his concerns about getting home. "Jake, listen to me," Sarah said, using the calm, authoritative voice she had perfected during countless medical emergencies. "You're in no condition to fly right now. Your body is telling you something important, and if you ignore it, you might not make it home at all. Emma needs her daddy alive more than she needs him at her party." Tears formed in Jake's eyes, but he shook his head stubbornly. "You don't understand. I've been away for 8 months. I was wounded in Afghanistan 3 weeks ago, spent time in a military hospital in Germany, and I've been traveling for 2 days straight trying to get home. The doctors cleared me to fly, said I was stable enough for travel." Sarah exchanged glances with the airport medic, who raised his eyebrows skeptically. "Sir, with all due respect, your current condition suggests otherwise. Your pulse is weak, you're showing signs of internal bleeding, and you just lost consciousness. Whatever medical clearance you had might not account for the stress of extended travel." The crowd of passengers had grown larger, with many people openly listening to the conversation. Sarah noticed several other military personnel among the travelers, their expressions showing they understood Jake's situation all too well. One older man in a Navy cap stepped forward. "Son," the veteran said quietly, "I spent 30 years in the service. I know how hard it is to miss family moments. But that little girl is going to want her daddy around for many more birthdays. Don't risk everything for one day." Jake looked at the older man, then back at Sarah. His breathing was becoming more labored, and she could see sweat beading on his forehead again. Whatever was wrong with him internally was getting worse, not better. "Where are you flying to?" Sarah asked, an idea beginning to form in her mind. "Seattle," Jake replied weakly. "My ex-wife lives there with Emma. We divorced 2 years ago because of my deployment schedule, but I'm trying to be a better father now. This birthday was supposed to be my chance to show Emma that I'm finally putting her first." Sarah's breath caught. Seattle, the same destination as her flight, the same city where her new life was supposed to begin. She looked at her boarding pass, then at the medics preparing to take Jake away, then back at his desperate face. "Jake, I want you to listen to me very carefully," she said, making a decision that surprised even herself. "I'm a trauma nurse with 15 years of experience. I was supposed to be on that same flight to Seattle for a new job. But right now I think there's a reason I'm here instead of on that plane." The medics paused their preparations, sensing that something important was happening. The flight attendant from Sarah's flight reappeared, looking anxious about the delay. "Ma'am, I really need to know if you're boarding," the flight attendant said. "We've held the flight as long as we can, but we have to leave soon or we'll lose our departure slot." Sarah looked at her ticket one more time, then at Jake's face. What hospital are you taking him to? She asked the medic. Presbyterian St. Joseph, about 15 minutes from here. It's got the best trauma unit in the area, the medic replied. Sarah took a deep breath and made the decision that would change everything. I'm going with him, she announced, as his medical advocate and to ensure continuity of care. Jake's eyes widened in disbelief. You can't do that. You don't even know me. You have your own life, your own plans. Sometimes plans change, Sarah said simply. Emma needs her father healthy and whole, not collapsed in an airport. And maybe you need someone who understands, both medicine and the importance of keeping promises to children. The medics looked surprised but pleased to have a qualified medical professional accompany their patient. The flight attendant, however, looked confused. Ma'am, are you sure? This will mean missing your flight. I'm sure, Sarah said, though her heart was pounding with the magnitude of what she was doing. She was giving up her seat on the plane, potentially jeopardizing her new job, and committing herself to helping a complete stranger. But something deep inside told her this was exactly where she needed to be. Jake squeezed her hand again, this time in gratitude rather than desperation. Why would you do this for someone you don't know? Sarah smiled at him as the medics began wheeling the gurney toward the exit. Because 8 months ago, someone probably helped you when you were wounded overseas. Because Emma deserves to have her daddy at her birthday party, but only if he's healthy enough to enjoy it. And because sometimes the universe puts us exactly where we need to be, even if it's not where we plan to go. As they moved through the airport toward the ambulance, Sarah caught sight of her reflection in a window. She looked like someone who had just made an impulsive, potentially life-changing decision. But for the first time in months, she also looked like someone who was exactly where she belonged. The ambulance ride to Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital was a blur of medical equipment, flashing lights, and Sarah's steady voice providing updates to the emergency room staff via radio. Jake drifted in and out of consciousness, but each time he woke up, his eyes searched for her face among the medics working around him. His blood pressure is dropping, announced the paramedic monitoring Jake's vital signs. Sarah moved closer to the gurney, taking Jake's hand again while keeping her professional demeanor intact. She had been in countless ambulances during her career, but never as an advocate for a patient she had just met. Jake, stay with us, she said firmly. We're almost at the hospital. They're going to take excellent care of you, and then we'll figure out how to get you to Emma's birthday party. Even in his weakened state, Jake managed a small smile. You really think there's a chance I can still make it? I think there's always a chance when you have the right medical team and the right motivation, Sarah replied, though privately she was growing more concerned about his condition. The evidence suggested internal bleeding, possibly from complications related to his previous surgery. Time was becoming critical. The hospital's emergency department doors flew open as they arrived, and Sarah was impressed by the immediate response from the medical team. Dr. Patricia Chen, the attending emergency physician, took one look at Jake's condition and began rattling off orders for blood work, imaging, and IV access. Are you family? Dr. Chen asked Sarah as they transferred Jake to a hospital bed. I'm Sarah Martinez, registered nurse with 15 years of trauma experience. I was with him when he collapsed at the airport. He has no family here, but he has a daughter in Seattle whose birthday is tomorrow. He's been trying to get home after being wounded in Afghanistan. Dr. Chen nodded appreciatively. Thank you for staying with him. We'll need all the background information you can provide. Right now, I'm concerned about possible internal bleeding related to his recent surgery. As the medical team worked to stabilize Jake, Sarah found herself in the familiar yet strange position of being on the other side of medical care. She watched the organized chaos of an emergency room from the perspective of a family member, rather than a healthcare provider, and it gave her a new appreciation for what patients' loved ones experienced. Jake was whisked away for a CT scan, leaving Sarah alone in the emergency waiting room. For the first time since his collapse, she had a moment to process what she had done. Her phone showed 7 missed calls from the hospital in Seattle, probably wondering where their new hire was. Her sister had texted 3 times asking for arrival updates. Sarah pulled up the contact information for Dr. Rebecca Torres, the head of emergency medicine at Seattle General Hospital. Taking a deep breath, she dialed the number. Dr. Torres, this is Sarah Martinez. I was supposed to start work tomorrow, but I'm currently at Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital in Denver with a medical emergency situation. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Ms. Martinez, are you injured? Do you need us to postpone your start date? I'm not injured, but I'm with a patient who collapsed at the airport. He's a Navy SEAL trying to get home to his daughter's birthday, and he has no one else here. I felt I couldn't abandon him. Sarah expected anger or disappointment, but instead she heard something that sounded like admiration in Dr. Torres's voice. That sounds exactly like the kind of nurse we want on our team. Take care of your patient, Ms. Martinez. The job will be here when you're ready. Relief flooded through Sarah as she ended the call. At least one major worry was off her shoulders. Now she could focus entirely on helping Jake get to his daughter's birthday party. Dr. Chen emerged from the examination area an hour later, looking serious but not dire. The CT scan shows some internal bleeding, but it's not immediately life-threatening. He needs surgery to repair a small tear in his abdominal wall, likely caused by the stress of travel on his previous surgical site. The good news is that it's a relatively simple procedure. How long will he be hospitalized? Sarah asked, already calculating travel times to Seattle. Normally, I'd keep him for 3 to 4 days minimum, but given his strong motivation and his previous military medical clearances, if the surgery goes well, he might be able to travel in 36 hours with proper medical supervision. Sarah's heart leaped. That would still give him time for Emma's birthday party. That's what I'm thinking too. He mentioned the party several times while we were examining him. It's clearly very important to him. Dr. Chen smiled. Are you planning to stay with him through this? The question caught Sarah off guard. She hadn't really thought beyond getting Jake to the hospital safely, but looking at the empty waiting room, thinking about Jake waking up alone after surgery with no family nearby, she knew what her answer had to be. Yes, I'll stay, at least until he's stable and can make arrangements for someone else to be with him. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. He's lucky to have you. We'll take him to surgery within the hour. The procedure should take about 90 minutes, and then he'll need several hours in recovery. As Jake was prepared for surgery, Sarah was allowed to see him briefly. He was more alert now thanks to IV fluids and pain medication, but still weak. Sarah, I don't know how to thank you, he said, his voice stronger but filled with emotion. You've given up everything to help a stranger. Not everything, Sarah corrected him. I've just rearranged my priorities. Emma's birthday is tomorrow, right? That gives us a goal to work toward. Jake's eyes filled with tears. She's going to love meeting you. She's always asking me about the people who help soldiers. She calls them angels. Sarah felt her own eyes getting misty. Let's focus on getting you healthy enough to meet those angels she's been asking about. The surgery is going to go perfectly, and tomorrow you'll be at that birthday party. As they wheeled Jake toward the operating room, he called out to her one more time. Sarah, my ex-wife's number is in my phone. Could you call her? Let her know I'm okay and that I'm still planning to be there tomorrow. Sarah nodded, realizing that she was about to have one of the most difficult phone calls of her life. Explaining to a woman she had never met why her ex-husband was in surgery instead of on a plane, and why a complete stranger was making this call. Sarah stared at Jake's phone for several minutes before finding the courage to make the call. The contact was listed simply as Lisa, Emma's mom, and Sarah could only imagine how this conversation would go. She dialed the number while pacing in the hospital corridor. Jake? Thank God I was getting worried. Emma keeps asking when you're going to call, came the voice of a woman who sounded both relieved and slightly irritated. Actually, this isn't Jake. My name is Sarah Martinez, and I'm calling about Jake's situation. Sarah took a deep breath before continuing. He collapsed at Denver Airport a few hours ago and is currently in surgery. I'm a nurse who was there when it happened. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. Finally, Lisa spoke, her voice now filled with concern rather than irritation. Is he? How serious is it? What happened? Sarah chose her words carefully. He has internal bleeding related to his previous surgery, but the doctors are confident they can repair it. The procedure should take about 90 minutes, and if everything goes well, he might still be able to make Emma's birthday party tomorrow. You said you're a nurse who was there. Are you with him now? Lisa's voice was shaky. Yes, I stayed with him. He was very worried about missing Emma's birthday, and since I'm medically trained, I thought it would be helpful for him to have someone here. I don't understand. You don't even know him. Why would you miss your own plans to help a stranger? Sarah found herself smiling despite the circumstances. Your daughter means everything to Jake. He was willing to travel in dangerous medical condition just to keep his promise to her. Someone who loves his child that much deserves to have people looking out for him. There was another long pause. When Lisa spoke again, her voice was softer. He really said all that? About Emma's birthday being so important? He mentioned that he's missed 3 of her birthdays due to deployments and couldn't bear to miss another one. He kept saying he promised her daddy would be home this time. Sarah heard Lisa sniffle on the other end of the line. We've had our differences, Jake and I. The divorce was difficult, and I've been angry about his deployment schedule affecting Emma. But he's been trying so hard lately to be more present. This birthday party was supposed to be his chance to prove he could put Emma first. He's definitely putting Emma first, Sarah assured her. Even while being prepped for surgery, he was asking about the party. Lisa, I think he's going to make it. The doctor seems optimistic about the surgery, and Jake has incredible determination. What hospital are you at? I should fly there to be with him. Presbyterian St. Joseph in Denver, but honestly, if the surgery goes well, you might be better off staying in Seattle to prepare for Emma's party. Jake's biggest worry right now is disappointing his daughter. Lisa was quiet for a moment, then asked, What should I tell Emma? She's been counting down the days until Daddy comes home. Sarah thought about the 8-year-old girl who was probably playing with birthday preparations, completely unaware that her father was fighting to keep his promise. Tell her that Daddy hit a small bump in his travel plans, but he's working very hard to be there tomorrow. And maybe tell her that there are good people helping make sure he gets home safely. Thank you, Lisa said, her voice thick with emotion. I mean that. Thank you for caring about someone you don't know, and thank you for understanding how much this means to Emma and to Jake. After ending the call, Sarah felt emotionally drained but also strangely fulfilled. She had spent years caring for patients in clinical settings, but this felt different, more personal and meaningful. She settled into the surgical waiting room, preparing for what could be a long night. 2 hours later, Dr. Chen appeared in the waiting room, still in her surgical scrubs but smiling. The surgery went perfectly. We found and repaired the bleeding vessel, and there were no complications. Jake is strong and healthy, and his recovery should be straightforward. When can he travel? Sarah asked immediately. If he continues to recover at this rate, I'd be comfortable releasing him tomorrow afternoon with medical clearance to fly. He'll need someone to accompany him, preferably someone with medical training, but it's definitely possible. Sarah felt a surge of excitement. He's going to be so relieved. Can I see him? He's in recovery now, still groggy from anesthesia, but you can sit with him. Fair warning, though. The first thing he asked when he woke up was whether he could still make Emma's party. Sarah laughed, not surprised at all by Jake's priorities. She found him in the recovery room, looking pale but alert. His eyes immediately found hers when she entered the room. Did I miss it? Were his first words. Miss what? Sarah asked, pretending confusion while pulling a chair next to his bed. Emma's party. Did I miss Emma's birthday party? Sarah smiled and checked her watch dramatically. Well, let's see. It's currently 10:30 p.m. on Friday night. Emma's party is tomorrow, Saturday. So no, Jake, you didn't miss it. In fact, Dr. Chen says if you behave yourself and rest well tonight, you can probably fly to Seattle tomorrow afternoon. Tears rolled down Jake's cheeks, and he didn't bother wiping them away. Really? I can really still make it? Really, but there's one condition. Sarah tried to look serious. You need someone medically qualified to travel with you. Doctor's orders. Jake looked confused. I don't know any medical people in Denver except you. Sarah grinned. Well, it's a good thing I was planning to go to Seattle anyway. I hear it's a beautiful city, and I happen to know there's a very important birthday party happening there tomorrow. The look of gratitude and amazement on Jake's face was worth every missed connection, every changed plan, and every moment of uncertainty Sarah had experienced in the past 8 hours. Sometimes she realized the best decisions were the ones that seemed crazy at the time but felt absolutely right in your heart. Saturday afternoon arrived with Seattle sunshine streaming through the airplane windows as Sarah helped Jake settle into his seat. True to Dr. Chen's word, his recovery had been remarkable. The combination of proper medical care, good nutrition, and the powerful motivation of a father's promise had worked wonders. Jake still moved carefully and tired easily, but he was alert, optimistic, and determined to make this birthday party memorable. I can't believe we're actually going to make it, Jake said for the 12th time as their plane taxied down the runway. 12 hours ago, I thought I'd blown my chance to be the dad Emma deserves. Sarah checked his pulse one more time before takeoff, a habit she had maintained throughout their journey. Your vital signs are strong, your pain is manageable, and we'll be in Seattle in 2 hours. Emma is going to be so surprised. During the flight, Jake shared stories about his daughter. Sarah learned that Emma loved butterflies, wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up, and had been learning to braid friendship bracelets during his deployment. He showed her photos on his phone, a beautiful little girl with his brown eyes and her mother's smile, often posed with various pets or wearing dress-up costumes. She writes me letters, Jake said, pulling out a small bundle of colorful envelopes from his carry-on bag. Lisa sends them to me overseas. This one arrived right before I was wounded. He handed Sarah a letter decorated with crayon drawings of flowers. Dear Daddy, Sarah read aloud with Jake's permission. I hope you are safe with the other soldiers. Mommy says you help protect people, which makes you a superhero. I am planning the best birthday party ever for when you come home. There will be chocolate cake and butterfly decorations and all my favorite games. I miss you every day, but I know you will be home soon because you promised. Love, your butterfly girl, Emma. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. She calls herself your butterfly girl? Ever since she was 3, she decided that butterflies were magical because they could fly anywhere they wanted, and she said that meant I could always find my way home to her. Just like butterflies always know where to go. Jake's voice was thick with emotion. I've carried that letter with me through some very dark times overseas. As their plane descended toward Seattle, Jake became increasingly nervous. What if she's forgotten me? What if 8 months was too long? What if she's angry that I've been gone? Jake, look at me. Sarah waited until he met her eyes. That little girl has been planning this party for weeks, maybe months. She's been writing you letters and calling you a superhero. Trust me, she hasn't forgotten you and she's not angry. She's probably standing by the window right now, watching for cars and asking her mom every 5 minutes if Daddy's here yet. The plane touched down smoothly at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Jake was moving slowly but steadily as they made their way through the terminal. Sarah had arranged for wheelchair assistance, but Jake insisted on walking. I want Emma to see me walking up to the door under my own power, he explained. Lisa was waiting at the pickup area, looking anxious and scanning every face that emerged from the terminal. When she spotted Jake and Sarah, her expression shifted from worry to relief to something that might have been gratitude. She was prettier than her photos, with kind eyes that reflected both strength and vulnerability. Jake, she